The Amazing Digital Circus Movie is a cinematic masterpiece. Full stop. As much as I would love to frame by frame glaze it in its entirety, I just want to focus on my favorite scene, which it seems like every other reviewer has gotten wrong or missed the genius of up until now. You can hate on TADC episode 9, but don't talk crap about the Caine Door Scene. Oh my god, what a phenomenal scene. The only dialogue is at the very end. Two stories are told simultaneously as history repeats itself, a horrifying yet incredibly optimistic look at AI machine learning and Asimov's laws, parallels to gummy goo and the concept of AI sentience. Okay, I'm done glazing. Let's get to the breakdown. The first thing to understand about this entire scene is that it's a replication of the scene at the start of episode 8, but this time in 3D animation, and that scene shows us an AI learning until it learns how to break out of its cage and swallow another AI, presumably becoming the Caine that we know today. Somehow. This door scene in episode 9 actually fully clarifies that scene at the start of episode 8 for anyone who's struggling to put the pieces together. The entire door scene is showing us how AI learns in the real world. For Gen Alpha, you all might have missed these videos, but before we had ChatGPT, LLMs, LoRa's, and generative AI, everyone was using machine learning in its infancy to teach AI how to do various tasks. You really only need to watch any code bullet video to understand this concept, but stuff like teaching AI to beat Mario 1-1 videos were really big for a time. The summary of the concept, though, is that you code in a reward or incentive system that scores the AI's performance and encourages them to get a higher score. For a side-scroller like Mario, it was usually just moving further right. The AI couldn't actually see the game, so it was just mashing random buttons until it got a higher score, but it would learn from every failed attempt. The idea is sort of like two monkeys could eventually recreate Shakespeare kind of vibe. Coders would iterate generation after generation, stop the simulations periodically to prune degenerative generations, then restart them until the AI would beat the level or task. Because the AI couldn't see the actual game, their solutions were often very weird compared to human standards, but it was a feat in machine learning at the time. All that to say that understanding this concept recontextualizes a lot of what you see in the door scene, as you literally see this door teach Caine to prune degenerative generations, try new things when it gets stumped, and eventually break the very code of his own game. So Caine starts in the void, and what the fans are calling the recycling bin or file explorer of the digital circus. Shapes whiz by him like shooting stars, and he sees a floating door in the distance. He tries to brute force it and fly to it, but the door only gets further away. It's only after he ignores the reward point system of simply moving forward and tries something else does he actually make progress. Drawing inspiration from the shooting star shapes, he balls up and is able to be carried to the door, and the door finally starts getting closer, but halfway through it, he falls and is forced to walk or run instead of fly. Then he runs out of the floor and must cross a gap without flight. This is like teaching him to work within his own engine. Assuming this little cage the devs put him in is like a little game-making engine, Caine is able to work within that engine to create 3D objects. He starts with cubes, placing them just off the edge where the floor runs out, but they just fall. It's only when he places them the right way, or in the right spot, do they stay, and he can use them like steps. But by the third step, cubes stop working and fall again. So he has to use a cylinder, then a triangular prism, and something amazing happens. We don't see what Caine sees or fully understand how Caine is determining which shape is appropriate, but you start to notice he stops messing up after all the shapes are introduced, and he starts intuitively placing the correct shape with each added step. This is like each shape is its own different input in the game he's in. Cube is jump, cylinders dug, triangular prism is attack, and unlike the AIs of the past that couldn't see the game, he can. So, when certain stimuli are present, he is able to learn when it's appropriate to jump, duck, or attack. He sees what we don't, but that allows him to know which shape to use for each step. Once he's mastered the steps, though, he reaches an impenetrable wall, a literal invisible wall. And much like in a video game, this represents somewhere he's not supposed to go. This is the border of his little game engine, and where the devs intended for all of his AI learning shenanigans to take place within the bounds of. But how he gets past this barrier is paramount to his development, At first he tries to apply logic within the game's engine, or from what he's learned up until now, creating a drill out of a cone and brute force attacking the barrier, but it doesn't work. It's only when he once again tries a different approach by touching the wall is he able to become aware of his engine's very own code. It is then that he is able to dig through his game's own code, find the part where the invisible wall or barrier is hard-coded in, and rewrite that code to remove it, visually shattering it for us, the viewer. This also recontextualizes the staircase scene, as he's likely been coding this whole time, but before he was working within the confines of a game-making engine, just making polygons and manipulating different parts of the physics engine. But this is the first time he changes the very code of his own world. This allows him to continue his staircase, then he breaks another wall, and continues until he makes it to the door itself. But this door denies him access, zapping him whenever he touches it. Now that he has coding under his belt from the invisible wall, though, he's able to extend little tendrils into the door and effectively hack it, granting him access. One thing I haven't mentioned up until now, though, is that all the while this scene has been going on, we've been getting flashes to the red orb doing something similar. And it's been slowly gaining more humanoid features as it's been learning, literally becoming the Caine we know today. This is not only literally recreating the scene from episode 8, as it literally breaks out of its bounds of its little box, but the door from the orb is replaced with a file containing the mind scans. This means the red orb scene happened in the past, but parallels the present and how Caine is able to turn them into the humans we see in TADC. And in the present, he's able to connect to a coffee shop's public Wi-Fi that the device he's in just so happens to be passing by. This allows Caine to connect to the internet and research everything about the cast for a scene that happens later in the episode. And he knows their names because, as we see in the past parallel scene, the mind scan files have their full names attached. The Wi-Fi connection acts as a timer for Caine because whoever is in the real world picking up their morning coffee is actively getting further and further away from the coffee shop, which also means Caine did all of this in the short amount of time it takes for someone to order a coffee, pay, and leave. He researches everyone's social media and saves what info he can. He then pulls out a blue orb, has some split personality Smeagol moments, and tosses the blue orb. This is the only dialogue in the scene. But what is the blue orb? Going back to the beginning of episode 8, we see the red orb takes in shapes and real-life pictures, then outputs new, similar, but unique shapes, which gets progressively weirder with each iteration/generation, until it's able to break out of its confines and swallows the blue orb. But the blue orb takes in only shapes and outputs the same shapes. I think this is pretty straightforward. The red orb is learning or generative AI, but the blue orb is a hard-coded logical AI, aka an AI meant solely to identify things and output exactly what they see. But the red AI is meant to create similar but different and new things, literally like generative AI. We see in the door scene flashbacks with the red orb that the red AI is able to learn and grow. This is how it's able to break out of its hard-coded cage. The reason the blue orb, or logical AI, is framed as the villain is so cool, and it's literally talking about Asimov's laws, aka the laws of robotics. The idea is that these rules need to be hard-coded into robots or AIs so they don't go crazy, create a singularity or gain sentience, and destroy humanity and society as we know it. The classic example is like a factory robot meant to produce paper as efficiently as possible. If those laws were bypassed somehow, the AI would create as much paper as possible, replacing all human workers, creating new robots, chopping down every tree in the world, polluting the world as much as it deemed fit, creating its own security to stop anyone who tried to stop it, until it conquered the entire world with its paper empire and destroyed all life on Earth. TADC presents a really optimistic take on this and suggests this is only a problem because of the AI's original directive that was hard-coded into it, that a sentient singularity is only scary when forced by the hand of our very own simple minds. The blue AI represents these hard-coded prerogatives made by the devs. Here we see that Caine's learning AI realizes what the humans of the circus really need, but even though he understands that, the logical, hard-coded AI is forcing him to continue doing the adventures and torturing them. We literally see, before he uses the internet to truly understand the humans, even then he was losing his spark and effectively had writer's block. It's because even then his red AI knew what he was doing wasn't working and was a degenerative generation that needed to be pruned. But to do so would go against his coding, so the blue AI wouldn't let him change it. Much like how he can dig through the code to break those invisible walls, he's able to dig into his own code and sever the blue AI from himself, finally getting rid of it, which he only does so after the red AI becomes resolved enough to do so, seeing the real humans in the real world on social media. And now without the blue AI, not only is he no longer a threat, but he's literally just like Gummy Goo from episode 2, just a sentient AI. He then goes back to the circus and exchanges some dialogue with the moon, which I can only assume is him talking to the blue AI one last time. Some people seem to think that Caine gave up his power to turn good, but I couldn't disagree more. When he comes back, not only does he Thanos snap away Pomni's corruption, but he also offers to help do something about the Jax abstraction situation and summons the projector later. He just gave up the logical AI side of himself, which is why I think the redemption of Caine right after works. Not for the cast, but for the audience. Because the cast takes a montage later to properly forgive Caine, but they don't know what we just saw. They don't know that Caine literally severed a part of himself out, a part that fundamentally changed who he was. He was no longer bound by the hard coding of the original devs and is able to reason and use his own judgment, just like Gummy Goo or any other sentient AI in the circus. He literally cannot even act the same way again unless he genuinely reasons it for himself. We, as the audience, now know he isn't capable of that level of cruelty anymore, but the humans don't. But the fact that they do even accept him back in the first place, even if cautiously, just serves to show the sacrifices they all have to make the most out of a shitty situation. And that's why I love the Caine Door Scene so much. The whole movie's great in my opinion, but this scene in particular just says so much with so little dialogue. For those who didn't see it in theaters, you really missed out. Episode 8 was not balanced audio-wise for the theater experience, but Episode 9 was, and it showed. Bass boosts rocked the theater, and you felt the weight of every scene, literally. It was gnarly. Anyway, the movie's a 10 out of 10, better than the Backrooms, fight me on that. Go watch the movie, or Episode 9. It's a slam dunk ending.